Meeting to order. Sorry, I didn't know it was back. If you please stand, brief moment of silence. And pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. Herner?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Borga?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy. Can I get an approval of the agenda with one addition, which is Resolution R 2016-131, which is hiring a part-time public works employee as full-time.
Make that motion.
Second. Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes for the July 11th, 2016 regular session.
Make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Weren't the executive session minutes in there too?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, I thought I saw them in there.
No, just
I
the
wasn't
regular.
questioning. It's all the hard work you've done on the minutes. I just thought I saw it in there, sorry. We don't have any presentations at this time or any scheduled public hearings, which brings us to our public comment section for agenda items only. If you have something to say about any of the items that are on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address, and address the chair. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close
I'll make
the
that motion.
public
Second.
comment section?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borga?
Yes.
We do have an item of discussion, which is our capital program status report, which has had some unfortunate changes due to our state government. Jay's going to make a report, right?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Probably if I just briefly go through them, just to give everyone a status update, and those ones that require specific attention, we'll deal with as we come to them. First of all, under our grant applications, the energy audit that has been, the application was submitted. We have received review comments, and those are under review. The Monmouth County Open Space Grant. This grant cycle has an application deadline of September 14th. The Parks and Recreation Committee has reviewed various opportunities and will be proposing improvements to the community center playground. Just by way of background, you'll recall that the Monmouth County Open Space Program provides for a 50% match with a $250,000 maximum. The plan is still in the formulation stages, but due to the cycle of the application, it's being proposed that we schedule a public hearing at the next regular meeting on August 15th. And that will require public notice, and that hearing would be conducted on, we'll have a brief presentation on the proposal. Essentially, it's the replacement of the playground equipment and some sidewalk and site improvements related to just the playground portion of the community center. Anything you want to add regarding that?
Well, I was informed by our superintendent of public works, perhaps Joe would like to talk about, that's apparently, there's issues with it, needs to be replaced, it's just not something.
Council, that equipment is nearing its useful life, the end of its useful life, and we've done some work to repair it. Quite frankly, we need to replace it. Before it reaches its end of its useful life.
Okay.
There's a grant for it, was some shade requests, I know that some people were looking for some
Yeah,
structural shade in that area. Include the drainage there, which makes the 5R or that mulch, safety mulch last a little bit longer. That's what we look at, hopefully, with council's approval and public comment.
And one of the issues that they point out is, although when you go up there, you say, oh, this still looks really great, what happens is it's metal on the inside, it's coated with vinyl. And although it looks great inside, it starts rotting away, it starts rusting away, and that's the fear.
And then, yeah, one of the support beams breaks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we've gotten these grants before, right? How much of the cost of the project do they typically cover?
Well, it's a 50% match.
Okay, 50% match,
And
okay.
equipment, as Councilman Turner knows, you can spend a lot or a little bit on the equipment, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's catalogs on it, and there's,
But you get what you pay for, essentially.
And you're limited by the space.
yeah.
How far
The
this-
space dictates the size of the equipment essentially in your areas.
So let's go for the grant, and then we'll see what we can budget
Is
for.
there any in-kind work we can do, or is it just a
Well,
cash?
we can do a lot of
50-50.
kind, I mean, majority of grant.
Do they accept that though,
Purchase.
in-kind?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I believe they do, although there may be a limitation on that within the overall program.
So that's work that we could do towards our 50% grant. If it's allowed, some grants do.
Demolition.
You rip everything out?
You know,
Yeah.
the demolition work, you know. We can also purchase the equipment ourselves as part of the match, and have the installation, because the installation has to be done by a certified
Certified,
contractor, so that's what we did at Larry Park as well. We actually purchased the equipment so that we can get that more on as well.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Moving down, the items that have been checked off are completed, or in this case, the Community Development Block Grant. We are not eligible to submit an application this year as we received the grant last year. The NJ DOT Safe Routes to School, we have submitted a preliminary application and identified Windsor and Parkview Terraces as potential areas that would be eligible for that grant. DOT municipal aid, there is no date set, and we'll be speaking about this in more detail. I think the council is well aware of all DOT-funded municipal aid projects are currently on hold. We have 2 of those that are in the works that we'll talk about in a minute or 2. DPW equipment purchases, the roll-off container truck, we received a bid. Bids were received last week, and we will be proposing, the funding is in place for that. You can see that the bid did come in below the estimate, and we will be proposing the award of that purchase contract at our next meeting in August. Recycling compactors, that's a 3rd, 4th quarter project, and we are awaiting proposal on the tax map updates. Moving on to buildings and grounds, probably the one of the most important there is the DPW site remediation. This month, samples have been obtained on 6 of the wells, and the NJDEP update has been prepared. All of the samples that were received fall below the requirements for cleanup. So the natural attenuation seems to be working. There were 2 wells that require some additional maintenance work before the samples can be taken, and that will be completed within 30 days. Moving down to parks, repair and maintenance under the community center. The council had a presentation here during the month of June with the architect. We are awaiting revised plans, and we expect to see them. I believe there's a meeting scheduled tomorrow. Other items, just ongoing work at various parks. Moving on to the next column, road and drainage under street opening restoration. We have recently, on Friday, been advised by New Jersey Natural Gas that they will be proceeding with 2 projects, both in the northern section of Spring Lake Heights. The first they are referring to as the Wall Road project. It actually includes the replacement of the gas line along almost the entire stretch of Wall Road, and then additional areas of Woodland, Garden Place, Kipling, and Homestead. There's a second component to this, which is they are calling the Greenwood Road project, and that includes, in addition to Greenwood, parts of Parkview, Woodcrest, Claridge, Pitney, and Windsor. The first project, Wall Road, they actually expect to, or are anticipating commencing that work in August. And then the second portion, the Greenwood Road portion, will be during the summer quarter, but not until after Labor Day. These dates are very tentative. As I said, that notice has just been received. In fact, the notification to us is so quick, or so recent, that we have not yet determined what utility work we want to get out of the way first. We have a number of fire hydrants that were a little bit lower on the priority list that now, because this work is being done, that those priority lists will be shuffled somewhat.
Jay, with this project and the repaving of the road after they're done, what scope do they have to make sure we don't end up with a war zone down Wall Road after they're done with potholes and half patches? And
Great question, Councilman.
I'd love a great answer.
As you know, this job will be very similar to the Ocean Road project.
Okay.
What I spoke to Jay about is potentially the 6 to 8, 4-week main construction time, 6 to 8 weeks to relocate all services. Depending on if they do it consecutively or following each other, it could be 2 months or 4 months. There's a 2-month period for settlement, then they'll come in. So reality is they're going to be paying this in the spring because by December, most likely the asphalt has to be shut. At any rate, that'll give us time to do our utility relocations, anything we need to do in that area. However, it may be time to visit or look at what it would take to pave the whole road because they're going to pave half the road.
So their scope is half. It's not just a
12
straight
feet.
patch.
12 feet.
It's 12, 13 feet,
Yeah.
28-foot road, so it's not quite exactly
Right.
that, but very close.
I have a question.
So half of Wall
There-
Road will be better.
Well, in a lot of places it say this, it's going up Wall Road, and they're going Garden Place to the base of Crosby Road. Which of course, that's the road we're gonna be repaving, Jeanette Norman Terrace. It would behoove us to contact them if this is in phase 3, let's say. This is like 2 phases. They're gonna do one main, then the proposed gas main replacement in Greenwood, Woodcrest, and Claridge would be phase 2, I'm guessing.
Yes.
If they get to that. So phase 3 could very well be the road that we're paving. So if we tell them, why don't you get in here, if you're gonna replace the main on that road, let's do it now. So once they're done, because they have a 5-year moratorium on that road afterwards, so I would suggest we go talk to them.
They were notified when we first started talking about this grant, and I have to check with them, but I believe that's Jack, but I'll double check that.
You know, one thing it doesn't, you know.
And we'll talk more about Jason.
The next project that is underway is in fact our DOT-funded municipal aid project for Crosby Road, Norman Terrace, and Jeanette Court. That project was out to bid at the time that the DOT issued their notification that due to the lack of agreement between the legislature and the governor on future funding of the Transportation Trust Fund, all DOT-funded projects have been placed on hold. We immediately revised and issued an addendum on that project and have pushed off the bid receipt date until August 9th. We were hopeful, and are still somewhat hopeful, that there will be some action. I think the council is aware there have been discussions, some of which have been detailed in public publications regarding the potential options for settling this agreement between the legislature and the governor. In the meantime, Joe May has recommended that because this project is partially funded with DOT, and I don't think I need to remind the council that of the areas that we're proposing to reconstruct, Jeanette Court is in the absolute worst shape.
It's a dirt road.
Joe has suggested that frankly we bifurcate this project and take out the Jeanette Road portion, which by the way is also the smallest portion of this project, and we pay for it ourselves, thereby eliminating the holdup on the DOT funding. Secondly, this DOT holding of funds is wreaking havoc with all contractors. We're actually hopeful that if we can get this out, with bids received within 30 days, we actually may be able to take advantage of a large number of contractors whose jobs have been put on hold because of the DOT funding.
And you're able to do that because the portion, our portion, will be enough we're going to spend anyway. You're not talking about expending any additional
That's
funds
correct.
that we wouldn't ordinarily have to.
We're just allocating the portion of local funding for this street in particular. We haven't cleared it yet with DOT because the original application covers all 3 typically DOT recognizes that because it's partially funded, we may very well change the scope of the job because the funding was not all that we asked for. But if the council is generally in agreement with that, Joe has indicated that within 10 days we can be out on the street. We have proposed tentatively an August 31st date to receive those bids.
I think that would be great. I mean, that road is a mess. If we need to get that done this year, regardless of what the state does. Yeah, that would be mine.
That is the reality.
Yeah.
2 years.
I mean, there's a big giant dirt patch in the middle of that cul-de-sac. It's just
Yeah, we
bad.
have been holding it together barely.
Yeah,
Likewise, our anticipation was that the next DOT project, which we had received funding for, the Mercer Avenue improvements, that was tentatively scheduled for also third, fourth quarter, but with the DOT funding, that is also put on hold. That brings us to, I'll mention it briefly now. We have also shuffled our priorities. We were looking on the utility side of a replacement of the sanitary sewer right out here on Brighton Lane for replacement. That has now become a higher priority because we will not be doing the full Crosby Road project. Joe, likewise, and I think that's the same tentative date as August 31st for receive those bids. So again, because of this DOT funding issue, it's forced us to reshuffle our priorities.
Do we know the scope of this?
We
Or
do.
do we have to, we don't have to investigate any more camera work or anything?
Right now, we still have more camp work to do, but we do know the first portion we have to do, so we're starting there.
And I just want to, if you, when you do get the camera here, to go over to the other spot where the same problem exists between Prospect and Lake, to just see.
Okay.
Because it's where, if you remember, it's where the force main or sewer, sanitary sewer comes up and goes to gravity. It gives off gases, apparently, and that's what eats the pipe. And that's what happened here. We have the same situation between Prospect and Lake, so we should expect the same result, same thing. So we have to see that.
and this is a project that was funded by us, so we don't have to wait for the state.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's totally funded by our water sewer utility rate payers. And was included in our capital plan as part of the
Yep.
2016 budget. Moving on to drainage projects, there are 3 that are in the works. Park Avenue, Route 71, the Ludlow Avenue, that's between Highway 71 and the railroad. That involves some work that we've requested New Jersey Transit do. The New Jersey Transit drainage ditch adjacent to the railroad is the recipient of the stormwater runoff. So we've asked them to sort of, working backwards, having them do their work. If that doesn't solve the problem, we may end up doing some pipe work in that area as well.
Or something.
Yeah, we have been cleaning and maintaining it. It's very shallow, as you know, it's flat. We have to,
We've talked about doing something, right? So holding the thing and pumping it across the spring lake.
so we've been cleaning it, and I went by tonight actually, and it's functioning, so.
The highway's a good thing.
Our jetpack is big, it's 15, 20-minute job instead of a 4-hour job, so.
That's the new piece of equipment?
Yeah,
Right.
Wonderful. Before we move on from roads, I have 2 things that I'd like to see added on the roads. I know that, again, we had another vehicle hit on Ocean Road, I believe. Is that true? Before it's a child, I want to see 2 crosswalks marked on Ocean Road and Wall Road, illuminated just like Alair Road with signs and clear markage in the community center and somewhere else to help slow traffic and give marked designated crosswalks. And I want it done like yesterday. We've been talking about it for a year and a half. Pick a spot, get it done.
Ocean Road is a municipal road, no
We can just do
permits
it.
required.
I don't want to hear next meeting, we're still talking about it again. I want to drive down and see that they're up, get it done.
You said 2 items, or they're both?
On
these 2
Wall
locations?
Road and Ocean Road, 2 locations that can break up the road and have safe spots that are marked and illuminated that people can cross at. Just like we have on Alair Road, the county put in, similar
Yeah, right
things.
by, like the one that's by the park.
But you want one at the community center and the
Yeah.
other one by the park. Well, we already have one. Where do you want to walk road?
I think you should do 2 of them. I think there should be one near the community center and one
Yeah.
either further east or west. I'll leave that to our engineer. I think we should do 2 over on Wall Road and try and split the road into thirds so it's not sea to the horizon and drive as fast as I can to get there.
Can you do a mid-block, Joe? It has to be corner to corner? That's the problem.
I don't care where.
Well, that's,
We'll fix it.
we gotta find those spots.
Does anybody up here have any disagreement with that?
No.
I didn't think so.
You can answer them if you want, because I
No,
heard
I
good
just wanted
thoughts.
to make sure that,
Mid-block, when we identify those locations.
I didn't think
that
we
is an
did.
ordinance requirement.
Yeah,
Weren't they?
because
I know we've all talked about it.
Wall Road is
we
not
have.
difficult, they're all mid-block.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Moving on to the water sewer utility, the water system as well as the sanitary sewer map updating is an ongoing project. The water tanks, as noted, those inspections were completed last year. Our annual well inspections are scheduled, will take place in September. Hydrant valve replacement, again, that is ongoing. The priority listing will be changing. We've recently completed one additional hydrant, and now we'll be looking at those streets where the gas company will be coming in. Well number 4 closure, bids were received on this in June. They are under review. The quick summary there is that we received 3 bids. 2 were in the range of $160,000, 1 in the range of $300,000 plus. Our budget estimate on this and the funding that we have in place is $125,000. We have initiated, or I should say the engineers initiated discussions with the vendors to determine if scheduling is what drove the price up or whether there's something else that we need to look at. So either way, we will be making a recommendation for the next meeting for either rejecting those bids or if we can find the additional funding to move ahead with that. An update on the unmetered services at public facilities. 2 of the, 10 have been completed. That is ongoing. Moving on to the sanitary sewer side, the big project there is the Shore Road and Black Creek wastewater pump stations to be funded with the $650,000 HMGP grant. That's the hazard mitigation. That is FEMA money that became available after Sandy. We have allocated funds for the local share. Back in late May, we received a design proposal and have recently received a second. You can see that the prices range from just over $60,000 to $125,000. Again, I expect that in our next meeting there will be a formal recommendation to award that design contract. Fairway Muse Pump Station, a little lower priority because this is being funded totally by borough funds. We have received a preliminary evaluation of the facility and are looking at a couple of alternate recommendations for correcting that. Essentially, it's pump replacement, perhaps a redesign. There's also a generator replacement that we will probably move ahead with on a second or a separate basis. Moving down, I already mentioned the sanitary sewer replacement. That's here in Brighton Lane. That's approximately 400 feet of replacement of that pipe. And as has already been mentioned, the jet vac that was awarded, we have received it, and that has been placed in service. The final item there, utility vehicle is scheduled for later this year for purchase.
Okay, thank you.
That brings us to our mayor and council reports. It starts with Councilman Merrick.
Jay pretty much mentioned everything that I would have mentioned.
Okay. Councilman Schuler?
I got a couple things here. We finished the bulk pickup on the north end of town, and the Muse picked up another 20 tons material between the two. There's paper shredding. It's August 6th. And over to the school, if you got anything you want shredded. And I'd like to make a comment on the professionalism of the police department. I had occasion, unfortunately, Sergeant Vanell and Patrolman Rapp came, and they were very professional and assisted us. And I felt they are a credit to the police department. One other off thing. One of our residents, Leslie Hayes Labruto, a graduate of Spring Lake Heights Elementary School, who was the first graduate in 40 years to become valedictorian at Manasquan High School. And this was a couple of years ago when she graduated from Spring Lake Heights. Last Monday, she addressed the international partners at the United Nations in her role as an environmental engineer. She is Director of Island Resiliency Program for the Clinton Foundation. She oversees the island's conversion from diesel to clear energy. And she's one of our people.
Great.
She's done a great job.
Sounds like it, yeah.
That's all I got.
Councilwoman King?
Okay. First, I'd like to just give a little announcement from the chief. We have a retired Sergeant Michael Johnson, who unfortunately is very critically ill at this time, and probably will not come out of the hospital. And he asked that I make an announcement about this. Michael was here for quite a number of years. I know he worked under Chief Henderson, he worked under Chief Steets, he worked under Chief Fury, and Zach, if you can add anything, feel free to. Officer Graham is in the back there. But the chief and two of the other chiefs have been keeping vigil at the hospital with Mike and his wife. So I would just like you to keep him and his family in your prayers. He even lived in town for quite a number of years, and he has a son. I believe maybe he lives in Manasquan or somewhere, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he was a fire chief in Borough.
Yeah, so we're talking somebody local that can really use all the prayers that we can give. On another note, I just want to make a couple of suggestions here. There's a lot of children that are riding bikes without helmets. Now, I know we have a very, very good program in our Spring Lake Heights school, and we do a lot of discussions about the use of the helmets. But we also have children that live in town that go to other schools or go to St. Catherine's or St. Rose, wherever, and they don't hear all these announcements. But there is a rule that, you know, you do have to wear a helmet. So I just encourage everyone that if they do see a youngster that is not wearing a helmet, I've been doing it on my street. I don't know that the kids are real happy with me, but I've been stopping them and asking them if they would, you know, please not ride their bikes unless they wear their helmets. And along with that, I would add that we need to be very cautious because the kids are out on their bikes, they're out on their scooters, and even walking. And since we don't skateboards, yep. And since we don't have a lot of sidewalks in some of the areas, the kids, you know, when they're on bikes and scooters and skateboards and all of that, they are in the street. So people have a tendency, again, on some of these streets in town to go faster than they should. And if they're not from town and they're here for the summer, again, they're not always adhering. I mean, even though our police force does their very, very best, they can't be everywhere at one time. It's just impossible. So that's all I have. I just wanted to make those two announcements.
Councilman Corbett?
Yeah, I just want to commend Joe May, Jay Delaney, and Janine Gillis for all the work they do with the grants. They save us a ton of money.
I have nothing at this time.
Soccer signups this week. Borough Hall, the form should be available tomorrow anytime.
What's the upper age limit?
You ready to sign?
It goes to 8th grade. All right, that brings us to our reports, notices, and correspondences. We have our municipal court report for June 2016. Our Spring Lake Heights monthly police report was included for June. Our water sewer utility revenue for 2016. There was a JCP&L public hearing notice for proposed charges, changes of residential charges. typo there. And a letter and a resolution from the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders opposing JCP&L reliability project. There was also, wasn't there something about mosquito spraying again in our packet? I mean, they've already done it once this summer, and they are doing it again tomorrow morning. So it was like, keep your pets inside and wash your children. Anyway, that is tomorrow, so look out for those trucks. That brings us to, did anybody else have anything for notices? All right, so that brings us to ordinance introductions. We have none at this time. And now our resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution R 2016-125, which is, let me get to it. Well, it is certifying that members of Borough Council have reviewed the annual audit for the year 2015. Can I get a roll call?
I'll second.
Motion in a second, then we'll do the roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
And if I could just ask everyone to hang out after the meeting, because you have to
Sign
actually
it.
sign the affidavit. Thank you.
The next resolution is resolution number 2016-126, a resolution of the Borough Council approving a fireworks display at the Spring Lake Golf Club for July 30th at 9 p.m.
Make that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passed.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-127, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing an agreement with the County of Monmouth for installation of a traffic signal at County Route 47 and Old Mill Road, which is Warren Avenue, if you didn't know.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
They've already started the work.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Next resolution is Resolution R 2016-128, which is a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing a tax lien redemption payment. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passed.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-129, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing a tax lien redemption payment. Different payment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passed.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-130, a resolution of the Borough Council approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on July 22nd, 2016 bill list.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution was the resolution we added at the beginning when we approved the agenda, which is Resolution R 2016-131, a resolution of the Borough Council confirming the probationary appointment of Peter Jankelewski as a public works laborer from a part-time position to a full-time position.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Just Janine, on your item 1, it says August 1, 206, just so you know.
Okay, thank you. We will correct that.
That brings us to the end of our resolution, which brings us to our public comment section. In this public comment section, you can comment on any item on the agenda or off the agenda. If you have something to say, please approach the chair, state your name and address, and say what you gotta say.
Good evening, Zach Rivera, Police. I wanted to let the mayor and council know that the police department has been the recipient of some complaints of speeders on some of our roads. The shift supervisors have been made aware of that, and they have assigned officers to a proactive speed enforcement detail. I'm not going to announce the times or the dates or the locations now, but we do recognize that there is an issue, and we are taking steps to correct that. The detail will last a period of time in which we think will be effective. This is not going to be a warning campaign, it will be a summons issuing campaign. So we ask the residents to continue to obey the speed limit as they most of the time do. But understand that if they don't, they are just adding to the difficulties of maintaining speed. I can also tell you, we've had, personally on Wall Road, I was assigned to a 2-hour detail sitting in the 1100 block of Wall Road, and during the 2 hours, the highest speed achieved was 39 miles an hour, and there were 3 that were in excess of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, part of the problem over that 2 hours of only having 3 over the speed limit is the fact that I'm in a large SUV with police lights and whatnot on it, so they can see me from quite a distance and they adjust their speed accordingly.
Are you asking for a Mini Cooper?
So, what I have asked for, and please keep in mind I'm only a little patrolman, is a handheld speed monitoring device in which we could utilize the unmarked SUV that we have, the totally unmarked Dodge Durango that we have, and that will, if we're in the interest of getting a more true and accurate speed for roads, probably give us that because of the inability for the driver to know exactly that that's a police vehicle and that we're monitoring their speed. So we may see some paperwork or a request from.
That is a better ask than a Mini Cooper.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a question a couple of years ago about cancer, remotes, handheld?
Again, being the patrolman that I am, I don't know if there's a cancer-causing effect of the handheld. I can tell you that all of our marked vehicles are equipped with it, and so I don't know what the difference would be between a permanently mounted unit as opposed to a handheld unit. And if there is, I'm sure that the folks that will approve that will look into that before they sign this. So we are aware of the problem, we are addressing the problem, so it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, before you step away, I was informed today by Robert Schaefer, Patrolman Robert Schaefer. I knew we had purchased them, but I did not know they had come in. And Zach is wearing one, so I would like him to show you what it is. And it is a camera so that when you are stopped, and if there is any kind of a situation, correct me if I'm wrong, or help me along, that this camera can be activated and you will be filmed.
So it's a body-worn camera, and all officers will be obligated to wear that at all times during their shifts. And there is criteria when the camera gets activated so as to accurately and independently document a situation. There are times when it's mandated by the Attorney General that it gets shut off, and we have all, I should say,
I'm trained on it.
yes, yeah, there's
It's good enough for me.
I just went through it this afternoon, so I am aware of when it should and should not be used. Right now, it's not being used. Although you can see that the lens is exposed. When I slide the device down, it will show you 2 green lights indicating to the public that they are being taped. So, you know, from my perspective, I like the fact that I'm going to be on audio and video, so that these frivolous demeanor complaints and other complaints that we receive can be easily and economically fixed.
Excellent.
There you go.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
John Tantrum, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I'm here tonight, I'm a member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and Mrs. Pink mentioned sidewalks before, and reminded me of something. Often, according to our ordinances, when you build a new house, you're required to put sidewalks. But people come and apply for variances because they don't want to do that, or they, and they give reasons why, whatever. Now, I believe it was over a year ago, maybe longer, I believe the borough engineer was working on a priority of where the sidewalks are most needed in town and where they kind of might be optional. You did do that, Joe, right?
That plan is completed, yeah.
Okay.
At the time, that was a discussion item.
Oh, was the plan done, or it is
It was a
completed?
long time ago, right?
Well,
That's
the
quite a
Board
while.
of Adjustment never saw that plan. No one on the Board of Adjustment knows anything about that plan, so we've never received it.
I like to say too.
So-
I call it sidewalks to nowhere. This is where you have no sidewalks in the whole street, you build a house, you put in a piece of sidewalk in front of your house, the idea through attrition, we'll have sidewalks throughout the whole borough. I've been looking at it for 60 years and it's never gonna happen.
No, well, that's not really the issue.
That's what that's
is
for.
that- yes, but that there's a priority. Certain
Where?
streets that lead to a school, you might want to say to people, yeah, you need to put the sidewalk in.
Sure.
So, but we haven't gotten that plan, so I
I
don't.
recollect, we introduced it to the mayor and council. The mayor and council took stuff, they moved some streets they want removed. They were removed, and the plan is now on file for a long.
Yeah, I mean, several years ago, there was grant money available for that, right, that passed the school plan, and we got certain streets done, but, I mean, I guess we could look for grant money because,
Well, that was the grant.
The safe routes for schools.
A few weeks ago,
Yeah.
I submitted a grant for the same thing, and we
Okay.
had an application done where we were going.
okay, so that's the important, that's, yeah,
There's
okay.
a copy, and I can give it to someone.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because it would help us in deciding what's an important street to have a sidewalk and what's one that might be optional.
Okay, great.
Ultimately, it's on the council, the mayor and council to pass that, to make that happen.
Yeah, but it's good.
No, I'm not saying you shouldn't,
Yeah.
but I mean, even though it's gonna go to you, you would then come back to
No,
us and.
no.
for us
But
to
your
make
point
it
was
happen.
that if somebody comes for a variance and they're on a street that's marked as being a crucial one, you would say, no, look,
Yeah.
we need a sidewalk on that street anyway.
And if it's not so crucial, we
Yeah.
might grant a variance.
It
It was just a guide,
Yeah.
for our purpose.
Great idea.
For clarity, board,
Put
I'd be
these
more
on
than
this.
happy to bring it to the next meeting.
That would be great, yeah.
But can they change their policy just within the board, not coming to us and
Just
also
don't issue
having an
variance,
ordinance?
Yeah, he was
Well, the
just,
policy right
I was
now
just
is
asking for it.
every house would have a
We
sidewalk.
often grant variances to people.
New construction, right?
So all John wants, you want guidance, that's all.
he wants to use it for guidance for passing roads.
Had this report.
Variances, or not passing, allowing the
So you'll
variance.
send them the guidance, is that correct?
Yeah, that's all.
I think it sounds like it was something that was to be used as a recommendation, which is
It
what
was
kind of
supposed to
saying,
go
so
before.
Yes.
see why there'd be a
Just never
problem
came.
providing with the document.
No, it isn't, I just want to make it, how would you make it official then? that
I don't
if they
think he's
even
asking
bring
you
it-
to make it official, I think he's
Yeah,
asking.
No, I'm thinking of that, how would that stop that practice? This board may not embrace that based on the talk they
I
have.
don't know that
It's
it would
their
stop the
prerogative.
practice, it would just give them
What
information.
practice do you need to
Well,
stop?
isn't there, what makes you put a sidewalk in front of everything else now?
We're not making, people are asking for variances
No,
and we're
listen.
granting them.
If someone comes to you with a plan,
All
with a new house,
all new construction.
and that's a
should
law.
That's a law, should have a sidewalk. But people
That's what I'm
apply
saying.
for variances.
So how do you
They
change
have-
So your
that
point
law?
is,
How do you change the
should we
law?
reconsider the law?
That's what I
Well,
think, to get rid of it.
That's not the issue of,
Yeah.
That's not the issue.
That would have to come here, that's
Yes.
all I'm asking.
No, that's the issue he's bringing.
That's my point, I understand that, it's been around forever, but how do you change it?
I think, John, he needs to.
Well, when John, when you say it's the law, it's the local ordinance.
There's a local ordinance, a
Right.
sidewalk
Yeah,
is an
it's-
ordinance.
So we have to
It's up
come
you
here
guys.
to actually change, get rid of that law.
That would
To
be
get
our
rid of it.
job to get rid of that ordinance. If we wanted to get rid of it.
So it should go to them for their input, come back to us for action. If we choose to move on, then makes sense. I would like to see the law changed and gotten rid of it. I don't think it works. I think designated certain routes for kids or whatever, that you have to have sidewalks and maintain them,
Well,
it makes perfect
It
sense.
doesn't work because the board grants the variances. If the board didn't grant the variances, it would work. People would have sidewalks.
But that's always asking for.
It would still be disconnected sidewalks.
Well,
These aren't mutually,
Yeah,
these
it would
aren't
be
mutually.
better to get rid of
The
it.
intent of the sidewalk to nowhere, as you call it,
Yeah.
is that eventually, over time, it would be somewhere
That's what I
that
just
everybody
said.
puts it in.
Yeah, but it doesn't work.
Well, it doesn't work because people are given variances and they don't have to put it in.
Right, well, no, it doesn't work because it's only on new houses, because every house that exists doesn't have to do
So you
it.
could
And most of our
change-
housing
so
stock's
You
old.
could change your ordinance then and say any house that has a rebuild or a new, an addition needs to put a sidewalk in. You could go in the opposite direction if you want sidewalks. So if you don't want sidewalks, that's another.
I would just get rid of the rule and accept in those areas designated by the town
Yeah, but these
as
aren't
priority
mutually
routes.
exclusive. You can have that for guidance and you can work on the
Well, we'll
other.
talk about it when it comes back to
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
or we could
Yes,
actually do
and
something.
when you do, if you decide to do this, my comment is that I like to walk a lot around town, and it's not on the sidewalk, so you don't have to be walking. in the
So
street.
one way or another, you would like more sidewalks as the end
Personally-
result.
Personally,
However we
I would
come
like
about
not
that.
more sidewalks, but as a
No, I think
member
it's
of
a
the
good-
board, I'm just asking for Mr. May's report so we can see where I look, that's all.
Yeah.
We can provide you with.
I'm taking this opportunity to push my own agenda.
Again,
We all noticed.
Yeah, you notice that?
You'll have to be-
Make no bones about it.
Great idea, John.
I want to get it back to you.
That doesn't mean we agree
You know,
We agreed that you
That's understood.
It also includes major, it also includes major renovations.
Not
Sure.
anymore, not the way they've been interpreted.
I think that's all
Central Avenue. 2 weeks ago, when at the council meeting, when we adopted the salary ordinance, and I asked some questions that I did not get specific answers to as to specific salaries, and I asked for an additional ordinance in order to be more specific, to have a little more transparency for the public. My understanding was, the mayor, that we were going in that direction. Subsequent to the meeting, I spoke to several council people and members of the public that were at this meeting, and they all felt the same way, that the mayor and council seemed on board, that their transparency was a big thing in Spring Lake Heights, and if we're not hiding anything, what is the big deal? Intro an ordinance and adopt an ordinance. And of course, the argument is, why not just a resolution? Well, in New Jersey, we have a right to petition a salary ordinance, but only an ordinance, not the resolution. You cannot petition a resolution. And the clock starts from the date of publication of that adopted ordinance. I was told tonight we're not doing another subsequent ordinance, so we still don't know what anyone's getting paid. We have a range, according to this ordinance. Some people are paid between $60 and $113,715. Some people are paid between $128 and $150. Some people are paid between $25,000 and $90,000. That's a big range. I asked for transparency and specifics, and I really thought tonight when I came, that's the direction we were going. If we have nothing to hide, we have nothing to hide. But I was told that's not what we're going to do. We're going to simply do a resolution. So the right to petition starts from within 20 days of the date of publication. The ordinance doesn't go into effect for 20 days from the date of publication. So I believe the date of publication was last Thursday, that was July 21st. And the number of registered voters in Spring Lake Heights as of July 22nd is almost 4,000, 3,916 people. So 200 signatures will petition that salary ordinance, and it will go on the ballot in November. I spoke at length today with our mayor, and I explained to him that will cost us a lot more money than it would to just pass an ordinance for a couple $100. Just show people, if this is what they were being paid in 2015, this is what we propose for 2016. That's simple. I was told we're not doing it. I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed in our council that we just can't put it down. If we have nothing to hide, what are we hiding?
Well, you said that twice. Can I ask what you're suspicious of since you think
Well,
you're hiding somebody?
The salary ordinance was not on the agenda. The salary ordinance was added as an agenda item at the beginning of the meeting. It was introed that way, and I came up and asked for a copy of the ordinance at the late introduction and was told it's not available. We did not, the ordinance was not presented until the public hearing. So I asked questions, here are the questions that need to be answered and presented with a salary ordinance. What's the cost of that salary ordinance to the public? What is the overall cost of the raises this year to the public? What's the cost per $100 that we will be saving in our taxes?
But am I missing something? I thought the salary ordinance simply established positions and ranked salary. It doesn't say that anybody's guaranteed that payment at all or who has those positions.
No, it does, you're absolutely correct.
So then
It
what would be the
does not
tie
say
to
that.
put individuals on there with what, I'm confused by this. And I guess it's because this is only my second time doing this, but last year I don't remember these questions. So I'm sorry if I'm asking
No,
fundamental stuff. I'm
no, it's
missing
fine.
something.
When the ordinance was introduced 4 weeks ago, because 2 weeks ago was when it was adopted, so 2 weeks before that it was introed. The intro came with, there will be a 2%, about a 2% raise in Spring Lake Heights for our employees. So when the questions were, well, who will get a 2% raise? Will everyone get a 2% raise? No, some people will get more, some people won't get any. Well, who?
Maybe this is a question for Gary. That's not decided by the salary wage ordinance, is it? That just says
No, no,
that.
no.
There's going to be a subsequent resolution that will set all of that.
But that appoints our employees for the year, right? Isn't that essentially
This
what
is
that
going to
does?
set the salaries. resolution follows the ordinance, and that's what's established. The ordinance establishes the ranges within that
Right.
ordinances.
So the
So is your question
resolution
about
comes,
what we're paying people for at a certain job, or what certain individuals are making to do that job?
what the raises are from 2015 to 2016. Because that's not clear to anyone, because we don't know, we have no clue what the raise is. If the range is, and I'm just gonna take one right out of the ordinance. If the range is, we have $25,000 to $90,000 a year, and that's the salary range, what is the raise? Who is getting the raise? Is every single person? And that question, I asked that question at the public hearing, and nobody could answer it.
But I don't think that part's been done yet, right?
Well, that's what I was asking for.
I mean, I've been gone, I'm sorry, I've been dealing with health issues, so I haven't been here, but have we finished that?
To be specific.
That is usually what we finish in the ordinance, I mean, the resolutions.
Right, so, but you can't, the public has no rights to petition or question a resolution. Under the statutes, we can petition the salary, any salary ordinance that gives a raise. Clearly, the one that was adopted 2 weeks ago did. It was published last Thursday, the 20 days will expire. So if we have 200 signatures, we can present it to the clerk certifies it, and it goes on the general election ballot in November. And
But that's only to petition the positions that we have and the salary range we've established for.
Exactly.
Because we can't sit up there and discuss in public individual salaries and what they're being paid. Isn't that true?
Well, a resolution is a public record.
We can have those conversations, okay?
Absolutely.
And
It's
he's getting
a
an
public
open
record.
request
One of the
tomorrow.
things that we did ask for from you, though, was an example of another town that did it in that manner, and
Okay, and I said it to you today, I said I have
Yeah.
three of them in my car, I have Middletown right in the thing, I
Middletown
Point Middletown.
actually sets in their ordinance.
Yes, absolutely.
They have
If you want, I'll run to my car.
2016, they have the actual number for every employee.
And in all fairness to Art, I promised Art I would drop these off, and they've been sitting in the backseat of my car all week. But it doesn't, I didn't ask for it based on what anyone else does. I asked for it for transparency from Spring Lake Heights. It could have been an ordinance introduced with the resolution presented at the public hearing, so that people could see. We see nothing. We see this huge range, and some people are getting 2%, and then when I talked to Mr. Schuler, he said some people are getting 4%, and some people are getting none. Well, who are those people? What people? Here. Specifics, and I have 3 more in the car, so I'm gonna not get them, I let me well. But I was asking for transparency. And so under the statute, we can't petition a resolution. We can petition a salary ordinance. So if tonight we had the salary ordinance and we said, okay, let's do the ordinance, and let's show people. I literally did the ordinance, and I sent it to Tom, and I sent it to Artie to look at, and it says, basically, this is what they got paid in 2015, here's what's proposed for 2016. You can see, 2%, 3%, 4%. What is the number? We don't know, nobody knows the number. It's never been disclosed to us. So the only option right now is to petition that salary ordinance that was adopted last meeting. In order to ask for transparency, because I really thought tonight that everybody would say, there's nothing to hide.
Well,
There isn't anything on it.
I'm not opposed to putting it on a ballot in November personally, but I don't know if it serves the town well, because last meeting, the people in that range, basically people make the top end of the range. That's what's been done here. And what having a big range allows us to do is if that person leaves and we have to hire somebody else, we can get perhaps another person for less money. So that was the logic that I understood. So I mean, if you want to put that and we have a specific salary that we have to pay position X for, and we get a new person, and we have to give them that same rate, it kind of handicaps us because we can't negotiate anymore.
No,
That's
because
what I
you're
understand.
setting a specific salary for 2016. You're setting that round salary for that person. Look, we have more than 10 public works employees. They're not all making $90,000. Right? So right now we have 25 to 90. That's a very specific ordinance with a very specific salary. That's what I'm asking for, and that's what I did ask for. Look, if that's what the mayor and council chooses to do, I don't want to do it this way. I don't want to see it on the ballot. I don't think that's fair to the employees of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights.
What do they do if you gotta replace someone without a range?
You amend the ordinance. You still have your range. You have a range.
Right, this doesn't have
So-
a range.
so
This is
the
by
mayor-
contract. This is a list by contract.
But there are some separate employees. The mayor and I talked about it. So for example, next year it would have,
Proposition, but they'll be replaced, that's what I'm saying.
it would have, or on the old range, proposed range, old salary, proposed salary.
Well, this
And
is
this
just,
way-
this doesn't give you raises. This satisfies some of your stuff. It tells you what each person is making by contract rather than a range. It doesn't say what he made last year or what he's, or any raises. You would
Right.
still have to get the information from last year and compare it. Like like you can do now for us. That's all I'm saying,
Okay.
on that point.
But it's specific salary is what I'm
But
asking
they don't
for.
use a range at all.
They have a separate ordinance. So a lot of them have,
So they do the
Two,
range
three
ordinance and then they come
ordinances.
up with this, like
right,
our
they can do
resolution
a
on
range,
this.
they
Right.
adopt the range ordinance, and then they adopt their specific salary ordinance, and then when they hire somebody new, they can keep them within the range. Because the secondary
Well,
ordinance.
that's why you need a
So
range.
is it simply just don't do it through resolution, do another ordinance? Is that what we're?
That's what
That's
is
what
that
I
right
was
here?
asking
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
is that,
I'm okay with
I don't
that.
care about that.
It's not necessary.
Okay.
It might not be necessary, but is there any advantage to it? I don't see a
Well,
big advantage.
you're basically saying to do the same thing by ordinance that you would do with the resolution. So if you wanted to do that, you could go ahead and do it, but there's no reason why you have to.
I think,
That's
if I can take a step back to what I said before about discussing individual salaries, I understand that we can sit up here and talk about what people are getting paid, but we can't dive into individual people and individual considerations and things like that. I don't think that's proper. I think the way we do it is blanket across the board is the way it should be, and we should adopt general policies. So if the issue is the policy that people shouldn't get raises in certain departments, or we should say status quo, and that's a concern, I think that's what we should react to. So if that's the legitimate concern, I think that's the discussion we should have, aside from all the other paperwork and how we do it. If the issue is people should not be getting raises, then I think we should have that conversation now.
no, I can't say that people shouldn't, because we don't know what they're getting. That's the problem. What is the tax burden with this proposed salary ordinance? We know there's a proposed, this was how it was presented to us upon introduction. It's about a 2% raise across the board. Well, so what does that mean to taxpayers of Spring Lake Heights? We don't know what we.
When we do the budgeting at the beginning of the year, we certainly do put things like that in, mostly to account for overtime and other things that may occur during the year that we can't predict for, because that's good planning.
We're not talking overtime, we're talking this raise.
But you
What's
asked
the
about the
tax burden?
salary, and where's the tax burden for the raise? I'm saying that's built into the lump of the salaries that we do during the budgeting process, and now with this is where we drill down to the individual elements.
Right.
But you would have to come in and get a copy of last year's salary ordinance to compare it.
So perhaps then we shouldn't
that's what
adopt
you have
a
to do if you
range
wanna know the answer.
until we have the salaries ready to go.
But-
And if we had the ranges ready to go and the salaries ready to go, you could have one ordinance and present it to the people and have a public hearing and say, this is what we have, just like that ordinance where they have very.
But this ordinance wouldn't satisfy what you want. Because this is just saying what the contractual, still not giving you the increases. You couldn't tell who got a raise by this either. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
All I'm saying, if you're giving this as an example, this isn't really what you want.
What I really
You
want is
it
what
was
I gave you.
Right.
Do you have a, do you
Well,
have that
except
with
you'd
you?
have to have the salaries, the ranges, because that didn't have, supplementary to the salary with the ranges.
Right,
So we still have to do two ordinances.
right, no,
Yeah, well, yeah.
Jay, could that information, like when we do this, could that
There's no
information
range in
about
this.
how much
No range in
the increases are for specific?
put it in. We can have,
Yes,
Could we do something like that?
the governing body is provided with the information on an individual basis. Once the ordinance is adopted and takes effect, the council is presented with a resolution the council discusses sometime at length as far as where the individual salaries are set for individual employees within the established range. And the increase is part of that calculation.
But we don't drill down into individuals, we generally make a statement of 0.5% or whatever we decide, at least that's the way I recall it from last year, wasn't that the
Well,
discussion we had?
And some of it's contractual, like the police department have one contract, and it's no different than,
It varies. The contractual employees that are covered by a collective bargaining agreement are not included in this ordinance. Those are done as a separate ordinance that
Right.
covers the multiple
Okay.
years of the contract. But to answer your question, actually forgot what the question was.
We don't drill down into individual merits of who gets what. We in general do, if we're going to do anything, it's uniform for all, isn't it?
As part of the preparation of the budget, as well as the development of the ordinance that was adopted, it was a blanket statement of a percentage across the board increase, but there were some adjustments that were made to that based on the pleasure of the council. As far as,
I wasn't here for that, I assume.
But well, certainly anything that we considered a stipend was frozen.
Okay, so that's what we're.
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of that stuff, too.
The mayor and council salaries, for instance, that were not
Frozen
part of
forever.
that 2% increase.
Right, but, and that's kind of, is my point, is that we don't know that. We're not, no one's privy to that. And it's not that it shouldn't be a big deal, but to say, this is what it was in 2015, this is what it is, we'll propose for 2016, and here's the cost to the taxpayers.
But we did that during the budget cycle. I remember going over that during the budget and looking at the bulk items in each category for each salary set of what the
But
increase
you
was.
did that on a basis where you're doing all of the salary and all of the overtime and.
Correct, but you asked what the burden was to taxpayers, and I'm saying that was
Of the
accounted
raise.
for in the budget cycle.
Of the specific
Sure, we
raise.
can't give money out now that isn't budgeted. We couldn't do a raise now that wasn't budgeted.
Okay, so let's say if the resolution is ready in 2 weeks, what is the burden of that resolution that increases our salary payout that we pay every 2 weeks? There's a burden associated with that, a number, an actual monetary value. What is that number? That's what I've been asking, and no one has been able to answer. So,
I'm not sure how nobody can answer. Like I said, I don't have the budget stuff in front of me, but it's in the budget what we allotted for it and whatever we decide in the resolution that actually gets applied. That's how we put money aside for surplus. That's how we have money there for unforeseen expenses. That's how we get, that's how we plan for the future. So we may have allotted, say, 2% at the beginning of the year. When we adopt it, we may only apply 1%, 0.5%, or nothing. So I don't know what the numbers are, because obviously I've missed a couple of meetings because I haven't been here, but you know, I'm trying to get a little better up to speed on what we're hashing out here, but it seems like if we have an issue with raises, we should have this discussion up here anyway, and we should have input. So
I think in the end, the numbers are there, it just, they could be better presented.
If you look at our ordinance, what we passed last week, you can't tell who got a raise. It doesn't answer that question. If you wanted to know that
Not in a
question,
simple
it's
manner.
not answered by that. It does a lot of other things for us, establish the raises, give us the ability to pay our employees.
right.
But does it answer that question? No, it doesn't.
did that give them a raise?
Huh?
Did that give them a raise?
Yeah,
No,
assuming that there's, no, it didn't give, but the
That,
number,
didn't-
yeah,
that
it
in and
did,
of
the number.
itself doesn't
Listen,
give them a raise.
The range is what you're, the top of the range is what you're making. We're giving that range, we're increasing that by the percentage that we gave them. So if it's up 2% over last year, they got 2% raise, and it'll show in the range. Because you can't pay them unless they increase the range,
Right.
because the range is what they're making.
So
at
the
the top
range
end.
basically sets the groundwork for the ensuing resolution to come up with the specifics. But once the ordinance, look, I'm sorry that you weren't here as a finance person, because I think you did a great job with the budget. That's a lot of work. I was trying to ask the questions and wasn't getting the answers, and the mayor agreed, but it's not giving me the answer. The answer should be, I wish you were here to give a presentation. Look, over, the average person makes 1.3% more a year, and we're gonna give ours 2% a year, except for certain stuff. That would have been great, but there was nothing, except for the agenda that I amended at the time of introduction. I asked for the ordinance, and I was told an introduction, it's not available. It's not-
Where is the resolution? Where are we in that process?
That ordinance, it's not available. That's not a good way to do a salary ordinance. We should be doing it where it goes on the agenda at 3 o'clock on Friday. It's there, people can see it, they know it's coming up Monday night. They want to discuss that intro, take it home, see it in the paper. It was just all done very, and the more questions I ask, the more answers I don't get. And at the last meeting, everybody felt that, and then the mayor was saying, yes, you're right. I can see where you'd like more information. So we'll consider, the mayor actually said, well, we should do the ordinance. And then tonight I was told we're not doing the ordinance. My only way to, looking for a nice way to put it, is to show my dissatisfaction, is to petition the ordinance and hold it null and void until the taxpayers get to vote in November.
It should be noted that this is the way we've always done it here.
And that's
why-
fine.
But when
But
you
that
say
was
things
my
like we try to
argument.
rush it through, sounds like someone's trying to get over it. I don't want to give that the impression. It's just the way it's always been done with the ranges. Never been
Wait,
questioned.
it
And
was
in fact,
rushed
the last
through.
couple of
Upon
years-
That's what I'm
intro, it was amended, the agenda was amended right here.
Yeah, I wasn't.
It
So
was,
could we do it like maybe?
we didn't put it on the agenda on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. It was
Well,
not.
no, that's a procedural issue.
That's procedural.
Which leads to, sounds like people
But I
trying
asked
to.
That being
For
said, it was, I mean,
transparency.
there was a hearing about it 2 weeks
Was there?
prior.
And I
Yeah.
spoke about it and asked for more clarity, and I didn't receive it, and we all agreed it could be done better.
Could we do something like when we introduce this stuff, Jay, to have that information about, you know?
Supplemental sheet.
Yeah, something,
That's what I said from day one.
Additional-
If that would do it,
additional
that's all you need is a list,
information
one
so that-
page.
Excuse me.
Well, we have the resolution, we typically have the previous year's resolution and the year we're adopting, so I'm missing some part of that.
Right, well, we don't have that, but that's the problem. What you have, we don't have.
But I thought we
Nobody
adopted
sees
it goes on the back
anything
of the table.
but these broad ranges, and we're all supposed to go, yeah, just here, here's my pocketbook, take the credit card and go. We're just asking for clarity. What is the number?
Well, I don't think that's fair either, because you vote every November to put two of us up here, so I think that's a little unfair to say you don't have input on that.
Well,
And we do work in the best interest of taxpayers, because we pay taxes here too. So
I agree with you
I don't want to get
there.
defensive on this, but I can also say, don't you work for Code Assistance who does our ordinances? Don't you financially gain by ordinance changes?
Not me.
So,
I do
but
not.
you still work for the
No, but your
company.
company
So,
does.
I
It's not
don't
my
want to start
company
throwing
that-
allegations here. I
it's a job.
appreciate the discussion on the merits,
not right.
but I'm starting to feel really defensive up here, hearing over and over again, like we're trying to sneak stuff through, and that's not the way I want to deal with this.
But look, you weren't here. It was not on the agenda. The mayor and council sit down after executive session. We need to amend the agenda right now and add this salary ordinance at the last minute. Why are we rushing through a salary range ordinance? Why?
I don't think we were.
But we added it at the time of the meeting,
I
when the meeting
understand
started.
that, but I don't think we were rushing through it. I think it was just something that we
When
decided
the
we
meeting
were going
started,
to
I
put on the
asked for a
agenda.
copy of it, and I was told it's not available.
By who?
Jay, maybe you could put some clarity of why it was put in at the last minute.
And why wasn't it available?
You're-
Well, first of all, I'm not aware that it wasn't available. It was not decided to place it on the agenda until the council reviewed it, discussed it in executive
Correct.
session, and gave it the authorization. To answer the question as to why the numbers were not available, as we stand here today, the council has not authorized salaries for 2016 that are, the salaries of which have been authorized by the ordinance that has now been adopted. So I can't tell you, the council can't tell you what the increase is because the specific salary authorization has not been made. The ordinance provides the framework in which it has to be made, but the specific salary for each employee is part of the resolution that the council started to discuss this evening. We'll continue the discussion at our next meeting, and once there is consensus reached on all the numbers have been reviewed, then it will be presented to the public
In the form of resolution?
in the form of resolution.
And that's what I asked for 2 weeks ago. I was asking for an ordinance so that the public has the opportunity to see it, introduce it, and have a public hearing. That's all I asked for.
Yeah, but I think Jay just told you that we're in a stepping process.
I think her
But
point
I
is
don't want
that
a
once we
resolution, I'm
actually have
asking
the
for
actual number,
an
she
ordinance.
wants it as
You
a.
want it all together. Well, we
No,
don't.
not all, it doesn't have to be all
Doesn't
together,
matter.
it just
can
has
be an
to be.
ordinance. Last week, my first question to the mayor and council was,
Right.
will there be an additional ordinance? And they said no.
So we have the ordinance for the range, and then you want the ordinance.
Right, the salary. Right,
Instead of a
that's
resolution,
exactly
so
what I
that
stood
can be-
for
And
now.
although
One
there's
thing
no
I think we need to
advantage-
make clear here is that we as a council also ask for our borough attorney to get a legal,
And you shouldn't get into legal advice given to you by counsel.
okay, well, anyway, we
Unless he's got to talk.
we have taken some information, let's put it that way, and put that into consideration. And that's why we're going the way we're going, with an ordinance and a resolution.
Okay, well, that's,
And I mean, that's our plan.
I asked,
But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be continued discussion, as Jay just said.
Jay, when we bring the resolution, we don't necessarily have to, we could introduce it, and then we don't vote on it for 2 weeks, right?
Absolutely.
So then there's 2
We
weeks.
should have a discussion on it, and then we
We'll
should
have a
hold off,
discussion.
and I think we should
Yeah.
get feedback, absolutely.
We should get some feedback. Could we?
well,
Could
that's
you-
fine.
Would
That's up
adding-
to the council how you want to do it. I mean, There is no reason why you cannot proceed as planned with the ordinance and in the resolution. There's no reason not to do that. And you can, if you wanted to, treat the resolution like an ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I was
You could
thinking.
do that. Or you could say, well, Zeta will give you what you'd like to have, and you could do an ordinance. There's no need for that, but you could do that if you wanted to. That's up to you. You know, but you can go forward in the way you plan to go forward. There's no problem with that.
But it's not written yet, so you can't go forward with it because
Right, we can't.
apparently there's nothing there. But what I asked for at the meeting was, will there be an ordinance? Because the people don't have any rights on a resolution. And that ordinance, the first one is so vague, we have no detail. So can we follow it up with an ordinance? And everybody said, sounds good, it's being transparent, it's giving more information, what's the big deal? And tonight, it's a big deal. You see, that's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
everybody
I don't,
thought that the big deal was the information, and there's every intention, I think,
Yeah.
that get the information out there, and we may disagree with how that information is ultimately going to be disseminated, but it sounds like, if nothing else, I think you cannot argue that there's not a desire for transparency. It's just whether or not it is transparency by your definition or by the council's definition.
well, the problem is though, if you do it with a resolution, like
No,
we discussed.
I'm hearing your argument, and I understand
There's no
where you're coming
rights
from with it,
petition.
yes.
There's nothing.
But where does it stop, though? We just voted on a resolution to appoint a part-time or full-time on public works. Should that have been an ordinance so you could vote on it? So you
No.
can petition it?
No, I think that, because we're talking about an annual salary raise across the board is the way it was presented of everybody's gonna get two
But
and a half.
that wasn't decided in that ordinance, as we've just discussed. That hasn't even been decided yet. So the answer is to have the discussion here in front of everybody so everybody can have input. If the goal of the ordinance is to have the hearing to have input, or is the goal to be able to recall later if you don't like what we decide? Which is the decision, to have input so you can be part of the discussion, have transparency, or so that if you don't like it, you can try and change our mind later via petition?
But that's the problem, is that I asked for more information regarding the ordinance and nobody knew the answer.
So a discussion up here with everything before we move forward with who's getting what solves everybody's concerns. Is that fair?
A discussion, right, but what are people, you're absolutely right, but I don't understand why it just couldn't have been done when everybody was sitting here at the last meeting agreed it could be more transparent,
Well,
let's
part
do
of it
it.
is, I like simplicity. And last year I sat up here and went through this process, and we had a lot of discussion up here, and there was a lot of feedback from the public, and we went through it. So this year when I look at it, I wonder, what are we changing? We did it last year and it worked. So what is the problem we're trying to fix this year that wasn't a problem last year? Does that mean we've done it wrong in years? So if the answer is you want to be part of the discussion and we should have more up here and things shouldn't end up on the agenda at the last minute, that's a very reasonable concern that we can fix.
I hate that.
But redoing the process and changing things because this year on a whim, I think is very bad practice. I think there's a reason why prior practice holds so much weight. Because if you do it and it works, there are plenty of other things in this community we can fix to help the community make things better. Why are we fixing things that aren't broken?
I'm not asking you to fix something that's not, I'm asking for transparency.
When we
It's all- just
can we have
transparent.
sheets for people? print
I think
it
that's
out?
very reasonable.
Yeah,
Is there some kind of information that we could present at the back of the table? So when we have it,
Absolutely, and it depends on the item of issue and discussion. Some things are routine, they automatically end up on the agenda. Some items require the governing body's review and discussion ahead of time. And we typically do that if it's an item of personnel, an item that, the various exceptions to the items that we discuss in public. And typically, we schedule those for an executive session. And I would say, as many times as not, we come out of the executive session with the determination that, yes, let's place this, it's ready for public vote. The council has concluded the discussion, it's ready. So it really depends on the issue.
Well, I have a question. Who wrote this ordinance 2016-06? Who wrote that and put together the numbers for that? I would assume you did as the council in charge of finance.
Well, typically for the ranges, we start based on what we decided during the budgeting process of what we wanted to allocate, and that's what we based this on. And then they had the discussion when I wasn't here, obviously, because it would have been introduced, they would have had a hearing, they would have voted on it, and it would have been adopted through the normal ordinance process, correct?
Right, so you didn't write this though, you didn't put this together and
It's a
approve the
template that they
numbers?
use every year, and the numbers, I'm sure, are based on what we reviewed in the budget, and that's what the high side went to.
And if the council will recall, we actually started with last year's salary ordinance, and there were notations as to what the increases would look like. That was drafted into a final form for introduction.
So why can't we use that for that, just what we talked about at the meeting? That is the kind of information, it doesn't have to be personal notes on personal people, but that's what I was saying. How do we know it's so vague?
I think that's true, but also in that, there are also things that we're allowed to do. If you were here for the meeting when Art was looking for some extra money for recreation, I personally don't take any salary for either emergency management or up here. That's $6,500, $6,600. I know there are other council people up here who do not take their annual money that goes to other areas. However, if next year I either don't run again or I lose, the next person coming in is going to need that money. If we erase that from either the budget or from the ordinance, now we need to find that money again. So things like that happen, which is why that range is a good practice.
So then, let me ask this for clarity. Everybody on this got a 2% raise?
The rates haven't been set up.
There are no raises, no.
Okay, so the number from last year's ordinance to this ordinance, how did we come to the number? Is it 2%, 3%, 4%? How did we come to this maximum? Does anybody, that's what I keep asking, and nobody seems to know.
I guess we're gonna
I
ask
just
this.
told you it came from the budget.
But any of the ones that went up, basically went up 2%, and then the rest also, then was going to stay still.
I think I lock in 2%.
And some actually,
Back to the budget.
my recollection is that some actually went down.
They don't want to say.
Okay, so we go 2% and down.
And we limit the stipends, they don't get automatic.
Well, why don't you just get her last year's ordinance? This is easy, there's nothing to hide, we talk transparency,
Okay,
get
well,
last year's and
thank
look.
you, I'm sorry that it was.
No, we appreciate the feedback.
I asked the mayor, I thought he understood, I thought we were all on the same page. Everybody else did too, and I come back and I'm the monster, so. But I will tell you, many people have commented they're glad that someone's asking for transparency. It's not, I'm not accusing
No, I think
anyone.
we're
I
working
keep
through
asking
the
the
process
questions
here,
of
trying to
everybody.
get
But I think that's the problem, the answers are available, it's the fact that you're not getting the answers that you need. It's not a matter of transparency or accessibility, it's here. You can get last year's resolution compared to whatever we'll propose this year. You could have gotten last year's ordinance, it should have been here. Those are things that we can easily fix. I thought everything appeared on the back table, and if that's something we need to address, those things are easy to fix.
Thank
You
you.
can do that, right, Jay?
Thank you.
With last year's ordinance?
Thanks, Nancy.
Cat Kirkland, 564 Atlantic Avenue. Two things. I did not know John was going to speak in support of sidewalks, but I would like to echo that. And I know every one of you up here has walked around this town, and you know that for about half of the town, you walk in the street. And as cars get bigger and as there's more accidents and people speed, it's very, very dangerous to walk in this town. And it would be really nice if the town was more walkable. And that goes all over. And I know everybody says, oh, I won't have to clear the snow from my sidewalk in the winter. Suck it up. I've had the same sidewalk in front of my house since it was built in 1950. I replaced it. It was $3,000 that Randy Newland put in. It's beautiful. You know, people can walk on my side of Atlantic Avenue. They can walk up part of 6th. They can walk up the part of 6th that got done with the Safe Streets to Streets Grant, whatever it's called. It's dangerous to walk around this town. And, you know, you want to encourage people to get out, to walk. It's healthy. It's the right thing to do. It's a sustainability thing. Hey, if you can walk for 10 blocks as opposed to taking your car because you're going out to the 7-Eleven to get a coffee, it's easier to drive because there's no place to walk.
But putting them, and there's some value to what you're saying. Obviously, we go there and people are speeding, we have a lot of issues. But doing it through attrition is much different than you said, we need sidewalks and curbs. We only have curbs on every street.
Oh, I know.
I mean, let's start there. I can't even imagine we had people not wanting a free sidewalk right out from the school for one block. So they're not that popular, but let me say, it's different. If you want to put sidewalks and curbs, and towns in West Belmont, and that's an issue, but that's not that way.
No.
That doesn't work.
I understand completely, but the ordinance says if there's new building, the person gives out, puts in a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Now, you haven't been to a Board of Adjustment meeting, Artie, so you probably don't know the Board of Adjustment now gives out variances like Halloween candy. It used to be that
Well,
they
what I'm
would
saying, they
sort
shouldn't
of-
even have to, I don't
They're
think
not
it should be a
anymore.
rule. Get rid of it, they wouldn't have to do that.
But
Yeah,
you know
on
what,
that
if
issue.
if the Board of Adjustment did what they were supposed to do and they cleared the code instead of giving everybody variance, half of the town would have been sidewalk by now.
I think it'd still be like having a house.
No, yeah, we haven't had that.
It'd be like a dotted line as opposed to.
And it doesn't count on major
No, but,
renovations. You know?
I mean, I think it's, we need to look into see if, well, first of all, I mean, if you're gonna make a plan to commit to sidewalks, it's gonna cost money, so where's the money gonna come from? So we either need to, budget for it, or find if there's other grants out there. Are there
Well,
grants
that's
to like,
what-
I would just,
to create pass-throughs?
That was why
right?
Frank Russo
To make-
Alessi had that law changed, because when Frank Russo Alessi was the chair of the planning board, his concept was, you don't want to go out and assess the whole town for sidewalks and curbs. They did that at one time, I know Butch was one of the
That's the way
people
all the
that
curbs got put
counted
in.
in that.
That's the way we did it.
They said if we do it incrementally over time, the whole town will get done.
He's wrong.
And the problem, well, because they give out a
I saw it back
variance.
then.
Well, because there are houses that don't get
Yeah,
new
it didn't
construction for over 75 years, and, I mean, there's
Well, I also
definitely a
want
ton of
Joe-
houses in this town that are over 50 years
I have
old,
the
you know?
floor, I'm speaking, I have the floor, and all I want to say is I support more sidewalks.
Okay,
My
thank you.
second question is a question for the clerk. Are public workers' salaries, are they part of the OPA records that are provided to you immediately, or are they under the 7-day? I know contracts I can get immediately.
Well, that is a contract, so I would say yes.
Okay, so I will send you the OPA form tonight for last year and what they will be for this year, because that's the question. What is everybody's raise amount going to be from last year to this year? That's what we want to know. Okay, so I'll put that in tonight when I get home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Owens Lane, 917 Park Avenue. First of all, let me say thank you very much for your service. You guys do a great job. That being said, I have a request. Matt McKean, the head pro over at the golf club, asked me as a board member of the Little League if he could borrow the 2 portable bleachers complexes just for this weekend. The golf club is having a tournament over there, and they want to create a viewing area for people to watch a certain area of the tournament. I'm a current board member of Little League. I thought it would be a simple note out to my fellow board members asking, would it be possible we just move them over there, they use them, we move them back. I was told I had to come here in front of the council. I reached out to Jay, and this was this morning. So I'm just asking, would it be possible to borrow the 2 8-by-12-foot bleachers? We would be.
I don't even know that they're ours, they may even be yours.
Well,
I forget who bought them.
I checked with.
We
my
wouldn't have spent the
fellow
money for a
board
loan.
members.
we didn't know, we figured we'd ask.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
If they're all rusty and wood, I'd say we bought them.
I would
Does
just say,
anyone
I
have
mean,
any concerns?
just an agreement that if they broke them in the movement process, that they replace them, otherwise, yeah.
They can afford that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried.
Yeah, I mean, that'll just make sure that they're gonna be careful with them and moving them back in the same,
Yes.
condition. I don't have a problem with them borrowing them.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
I never would have done it before.
We like that.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen Mr. 812 Central. I want to thank Mr. Campion for the crosswalk comment for the community center park. Having 2 little kids over in the area, it's essential that there's one there. I would also recommend the Ocean Road Park up the road, there be one
I
there
think
as
that's the other
well.
one I have.
That's
talked to
what
Joe
I-
about it. I said 2 of them on Ocean Road.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you need the pedestrian sign, but we don't have marked crosswalks anywhere across Ocean Road. And there are so many people that walk from the north side of Ocean Road to the south side. I do it with the kids every day during that time. And I'm trying to teach my little one how to walk across the street and look for the crosswalk, there's nothing there.
I try to do it with my two little ones trying to cross Alair Road from Alair Road Park, and I still can't get cars to stop and mark crosswalk with giant neon signs, so I can't imagine what you're going through over there, but it's a very hot priority for you.
No, but you're saying that
I
has
would
sidewalks on
Ocean Road
both
Park
sides.
where people play basketball.
No, I know.
I
I
would
know.
love a
bikes.
yellow sign at the Ocean Road Park and one at the community center park. I'm not sure,
I
I know
envision
that's
the
not
same as Alair
budgeted
Road.
for, if they have them lying around, but I think
We
there should
can
be
find money for
crosswalks.
garbage cans, we can find money to replace fence, we can find money to put up safety crosswalks on major
And
roads.
they should be there.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. You're finding money to pay for it.
And I'm just noticing with the kids riding the bikes too, the other places are along 71, they're all at Dunkin' Donuts. They are going from 71 Dunkin' Donuts to Seagard, along the bridge. There's nothing there. They need to be marked, you know, right along. There's the walkway. They need walkway there.
Yeah,
I think there's a walkway on the east side of that bridge,
Yes.
but not on the west side. So
No, there's a sidewalk along 71, but the crosswalk.
Across 71?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no crosswalk.
Right.
lines.
I mean, we can work on that, but that is not just us simply paying the fines.
Yeah,
that's the state or whatever, but you're right, in order to cross that.
Not that it can't be done, but it just can't be done by our public works guys with some paintbrushes putting it down.
I'm just,
But that's a good point.
thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Eric Bennett, 100 Road, up to echo Tara's comment about the crosswalks on Ocean Road. Really big help. And I'm glad to see that they're going to be looking to getting some shade in that grant for the park, for the community center. That's would be a big help there. But one thing I want to request is, being that eastbound of Ocean Road is no parking, some of the no parking signs are missing, mainly between 9th Avenue and about 913, there's like a big gap of no parking signs. I know one was knocked down inadvertently by a tree removal company a couple years ago. And I was assuming they were going to drop it off to get it put back up. But it's a visual problem that people are using the community center for events and they're parking on the east side of the road, and it's very cumbersome for two-way traffic to get through. And people get out of the driveways. And people are still, they're still not reading the signs even when they're there, but there's at least one, if not two signs that are missing that 5-hour stretch that they can be
Helpful to, yeah.
replaced or put back in or whatever else to help in that stretch area with the speeders and kids crossing, parents crossing.
All right, thank you. Did you note that? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Catherine Hahn, Central Avenue. The sidewalks are great, and I would love if someday we could budget for them from Shore Road all the way down to the railroad tracks. There is absolutely nowhere to walk. People are riding their bikes, they're walking with children, they're walking with dogs, and that should definitely have a sidewalk. You know where I mean, Shore Road,
Yeah.
by our sign, all the way down to the railroad tracks.
Okay.
That before of any other sidewalks, like in front of people's house, that's our public, and that should be essential. And I'm here 40 years and we've been wanting it, never happens.
It'd be nice
But
if there was a
maybe someday.
sidewalk out to like the Acme and
Might
Whole
be
Foods
nice,
too,
might be
wouldn't it?
nice. And then also, August 2nd is our National Night Against Crime. That is national and is a block party per block that we protect the neighborhood. So our block is doing it on the 800 block and Central Avenue. And we encourage everyone in town to participate. We did in the past, then it went to the roadside. We have to bring the spirit back to Spring Lake Heights. It's almost like we have a black cloud over it. There is no community involvement in anything anymore. Years ago, we did, when we started beautification, Eileen and I did the 5K race. That we took away. It seems like we take everything away. There's no spirit. We have to bring it back.
You know, it's crazy,
It's our
the school is wonderful. There's a disconnect, because I see so much participation in people helping out at the school level, and it just, for the community, it just dies off.
It just
I think
dies
we
off.
just have to find an event to get people
We just have
Well,
to
interested.
just,
start
you know,
to
low,
really
you need
pick
people
up
to step
an
up or
event
something.
and, you know, and we have to see how old our town is. I know we've
It's
already
Spring
did
Lake
a
Heights.
50th.
Next
We
year.
did a 75th.
Next year's
Real
90.
day.
Is it
Isn't
90?
it? Next
Yes.
year's 90?
Yes, ours.
Yeah.
Is it 90?
Yes.
Eric, you guys
Very
stay at
good,
block
very
45.
good. Right, Tom.
You still do block party fireworks?
What was that date?
Isn't it
August
28,
2nd.
not 27?
Last year
It's
wasn't
a national
known as
night
Terrorist
out against crime. And our police
27th or
officers
28th?
too sometimes put
27th.
a little
27th.
block, like a roadblock on that street for us. They have done it in the past. So, but it is national, right, Zach?
Yeah, so in years past, the National Night Out, it's been co-sponsored, or co-organized by both Spring Lake Heights, Seagird's been involved, Walt Township has been involved, and it has been held at the National Guard Armory, or the base in Seagird, because of the multiple agencies that were involved. And at one point, they had helicopters coming in, and they had different large-scale recreation activities to get more involvement. So I haven't been here during which time it's been held in Spring Lake Heights before, but of course, anything in which the police department can get more involved with at the community level, at the street level, we would love to do. But again, being a patrolman, this would have to be discussed at a higher level than I currently can authorize.
Thank you. All right.
I'm Nyla Berger, 1213 Pond Road. Okay, I'll add to all of these things. One, since we're talking about the traffic, both Allaire Road and Ocean Road, besides putting in sidewalks, could we find a way to get permanent, those speed, where it records your speed right when you come into town on both of those roads?
Those signs, the speed
The
signs?
signs, yeah, and I know we've had them in the past, and
Yeah, but
people
they
are
take
cutting
break-
the
they
wires and stuff. Is there a way to get it so they can stay up? Because at least that would give people something to, especially with the intersection at Ocean Road and Old Mill Road, it's still, I mean, it's much better now that we have the new configuration, but it's still, especially in the summer, people really come across, you know.
I just
over
spoke
there.
to Jay about that today, as a matter of fact, because I found out from the chief that some of the signs have broken. And I told Jay to get me a price on what the replacement factor is, because I agree with you, we do need to do some of these current roads. Old Mill Road is another one that, you know, we could put it up in a couple of different places. So, I don't know whether I was reading your mind or what, but I did mention that to Jay today.
I have no, next question is, Joe, we're talking about putting in trees at the park, at community center, but I don't think there aren't any sprinklers there, are there? I know that's probably.
We're not necessarily saying trees.
He said
Well,
shade.
Shade, well,
There's fabric,
but if we're
there's
putting,
a lot of ways to
well,
get
if we're
shade.
putting it in greenery and we should
Yeah.
have to think about,
I didn't,
I know you
Right.
didn't say, okay.
they make, top
sails.
configuration with basically giant umbrellas.
Okay, all right, so we're not putting greenery, because otherwise,
You don't like
there
trees?
wouldn't be a lot of people.
Trees are good until a limb falls on them.
Oh, that too.
Playground, it's a problem.
Where they climb in the tree.
Or they're in the tree, or that becomes the playground, like when I was a kid.
Oh, and since we mentioned Night Out Against Crime, so remember that, but we are having, the event is taking place at the Seagirt again on August 2nd. Sponsored by, you know, I don't know, I wrote it down on my calendar the other day, and it's usually around like 5 in the afternoon to about 8, yeah, something like that, I can find out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
sponsored by the, well, the alliances are involved in the police departments and all that.
That was the second.
Yeah, yeah. And as we were talking about, the next year is the 90th anniversary, so, you know, 70 and 75th, we did big events, so you might want to think about doing a big event again
I
next
think we
year.
should, yes.
I think they do want to start thinking about that,
Yeah.
some events.
Yeah.
We did quite a
Last time we had the, well, they had the museum at the
There's a
community
museum,
center.
right, with the in the park. Oh,
There,
that was
and-
great.
Oh, well, it's great, it's a lot talk about it, getting people into it, that's a lot of hard work,
Right.
finding all that stuff again. But it was wonderful.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and
the big
Allaire Road Park, we had
We
the
had the big
bands, we had
thing,
the,
and
yeah,
the-
it was a
the
big
big
thing. It's
tent
probably nice
and
to
the-
remember.
Yes, we had all that, yeah. It was nice.
Yeah, it was.
The big tent and all
Do
the
you happen to know if there's a
dancing.
date, is there an incorporation date that goes with that, do you know when it is in the year? I'm just curious.
Does anybody remember?
If we can't find it, we'll just make
Make
it.
one up.
Hopefully it'll be a warm, dry
Like
week.
the middle of September.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, it was probably January 1st.
January 1st.
October 1st.
Make my schedule.
Okay, Okay, those are mine.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Eileen.
Seeing no other hands. Do you want to say something? Come on up.
Ian Reynolds, 304 ordinance 2016-07, did come up tonight?
Yeah, right, I'm talking about that.
The
Lease
lease, no, it did not. It was waiting for its green acres approval, right?
Thanks for your time.
You go ahead.
That's correspondence.
No, you don't have
And on that note, once upon introduction, the ordinance and the lease was submitted to New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for review under the Green Acres Program. We did receive correspondence very late Friday afternoon from them. There's a very minor adjustment to the lease that they're requesting. But based on that, the public hearing on the ordinance is scheduled for our next meeting, August 15th.
That's great, thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Seeing no further hands. Have you seen it? Can I get a motion to close the voice of the public?
I can't remember if I cannot speak to it. Couldn't stop
Mrs. Campion?
Yes.
on the record.
Yes.
Mr. Herder?
Yes?
Mr. Merrickin? Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Warbeck?
Yes.
I don't really remember. That's right, you did.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I wasn't going to.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.